Okay, so the other ambassador was ambassador of Nepal, but he had a good time. You know, he uses UN vehicles, and my driver, because I don't like drivers, I drive myself, to have a good time, you know, exploring all the temples in Cambodia, because he had nothing to do. Now, so who is this fellow here? Well, I'm here in the middle, and here is Sihanouk, and here is Akashi. Everyone knows who is Akashi and who is Sihanouk. And I was in the middle. And here are the famous, world famous bodyguards, a gift from Kim Il-sung to Sihanouk. It's really a gift bodyguard, you know. And here I was saluting the troops of UNTAC. But I'm showing this because when I was approaching the governor of Siem Reap, you know, I had, of course, a very impressive contingent, you know, police from Ireland, you know, military officers from US and so on. And I arrived at his palace, well, his mansion in Siem Reap, it's still there. And I said, you know, Mr. Nozam, may I introduce myself? I'm the governor of Siem Reap. He said, no, I'm the governor. So I said, no, I'm the governor. He says, I'm the governor, and of course I blame, because me with my miserable 10 people cannot be controlling. So that's why I said, this myth that Hun Sen's government doesn't exist is a joke, you know. So, yeah, so it's a joke. If you really want to turn the supervision of the sub-nominated administrator impossible to implement, the extent of meaning of UNTAC's control was not clear. The late Hadi Anadi, one of the authors in the implementation plan, stated to me that it was never intended to have full control. He passed away, actually he died in Haiti when there was a big blast, earthquake, which would have required thousands of staff. As I said, I have 10 people, you know, and my Okuma was very serious and so on, but they just laughed. And next time you can ask them how much revenue do you get from Angkor Wat, they give an entirely different figure. So, and then they laugh, you know, this UNTAC, we can fool it. I can tell you stories about UNTAC being fooled. There was a whole ministry established in Phnom Penh, the Ministry of Public Security, because remember I said UNTAC is supposed to be controlling finance, foreign affairs, military, and security. So they don't want the Ministry of Interior to be controlled by UNTAC. So they created a separate ministry, Minister of Public Security, and UNTAC can control that. So we went there, and it's on empty shell, because all the control was done by the other ministry. Oh, there are stories, you know. We were taken, well, but all that comes back to the fact that we think that Hun Sen doesn't exist. So we were just taken for a ride, very often. Yeah, so all the time, UNTAC wants to, some wants UNTAC to control, whereas Khmerus wants to maximize it, minimize UNTAC control. So Khmerus is basically want me to control Hun Sen, you know. He says, why are you not controlling Hun Sen? Every day, as I said. Well, maybe 3 times a week, but very boring, you know, these 2 generals coming to, and we always meet in the house of the Indonesian military police, because I don't want to meet in my office, the Khmerus. But they are not the enemies, remember, they are turtle dove, you know. So, but still I don't want to, but of course Hun Sen has his ears everywhere. Now, 2 major achievements, yeah. Until now you must be wondering what I'm up to, because I'm talking about theory. The refugee repatriation was very successful. Here are the refugees who first got into Thailand. I got this from the internet, but I saw these pictures myself in 1979. You know, you might have already seen about when the Vietnamese opened up the countries, the Khmer's prisons were opened up, so they streamed into Thailand. And these are the faces of the first refugees. Now, then I call them warrior refugees because not only in New York do they not recognize Hun Sen, but in the field they want to defeat him through the refugee warriors. You know. The refugees were armed, and arms went through the Ting Shau Ping Trail, which is from Satahip in Thailand to the Cambodian border. Arms from China came to the Khmerus at that time through this Ting Shau Ping Trail, and the Thais get the cut. You know, you just keep 50% of that arms. You know, if you have Thais as your friends, you know, you don't need enemies to see what the Cambodian says. You know. I don't know no Thai people in me, but this is not me, this is the Khmer saying. And so these warrior refugees were all over the places. So these camps are controlled by Khmerus, Sihanu, it means puts it back, and Khmerus, KPNLN. So how did the UN manage to repatriate all the refugees? Well, we have a very great man heading the refugee operation. His name is Sergio de Mello, and he died unfortunately in Iraq when he was the UN representative and the bomb killed him. He told Hun Sen, "Oh, this is nothing, this is all humanitarian, you know, don't worry." It's not that they are, because basically for Hun Sen, it's like all these warrior refugees are being paid by the UN to come in and to fight him. But he managed to convince Hun Sen. And the Khmerus, of course, were willing. The Khmerus violated all the UN agreements except refugee repatriation, because they get, these refugees from Khmerus areas not only get paid to return to their own country, paid by UNTAC, and they also get rice and so on. So this was a big success. So Sergio de Mello made a very good move there. For instance, all the refugees were repatriated by April, and most of them come to my province, Batabang, and it's all in the northeast there, because as you remember, the refugee camps are all bordering on Siem Reap, Batabang, and Lantai Minjay. So the refugees like to be repatriated into our provinces, which gave me a lot of headache because they were promised land. And I mean, how can you get, first they were, 10 years they were attacking Hun Sen, and now they come and the UN have to give them land. So that was quickly abolished, and instead they got some cash, and so, but it was a big success due to several factors I already mentioned. Well, the UNHCR and High Commission for Refugees was a very successful UN organization headed by Japanese Sadao Ogata. She is very famous. You know, Japan has the very famous women outside the country, because in Japan they have to serve tea and coffee. So I once had to give an exam, for entrance exam to the UN, and I got brilliant Japanese women, and I asked them, why do you want to go to the UN? They said, oh, in Tokyo, if at that time, I don't know, now it's different. I have to serve tea, even with my MBA, as I'm a woman. Well, I already mentioned the second one. And the massive operators before the election would have the opposition party. But the Milo said, don't worry, this is all humanitarian. They are all your people. And Hun Sen agreed to operate fully Khmer. So what they got was transport to the final destination, immediate assistance, housing materials, and rice rations for 400 days. and reintegration program. As I said, first they were promised land, but we could never deliver them. Now then came the elections. This was very successful. You know, this fellow here, they said, you know, oh, I have this ID card, you know, laminated, because UNTAC spent $1.4 billion. So they were like, oh, yeah, I don't even have to pay. He was so happy. You know, and were very successful, and it's more than 90% of voters participated. Whole families, little old ladies, so they are like a picnic, you know, they all go to the election site and they brought their own food, of course, because they cannot afford to eat in a restaurant. And this is the election scene. So these are UNTAC people, you know, monitoring the election. So for them it's like a festival. Suddenly our vote counts. And many of them actually voted for UNTAC, of course, because they thought, oh, these are, yeah, I had a lot of ballots were invalid because they like UNTAC. You know, we have money and we brought freedom and we brought beer and Coca-Cola. That's maybe the most important one. Now, so is it true that all the refugees repatriated so quickly was not helping the opposition? Of course it's not, because here are the refugee repatriation. The biggest ones are Siem Reap, Battambang, and Pursa. Well, it's really Battambang, Banten Inche. This is the biggest concentration of refugee returnees. And of course, they are the biggest success for Punsin Pact. But of course, so in a way, Sergio de Mello lied to Hun Sen, saying it had nothing to do with election. But by that time, Hun Sen has other plans in his head, and he thinks he can win another way. Then let them all return, you know. And that's how he did. He went, okay, one more thing about human rights. Human rights had, as I said, dedicated young men, mostly from European and American, who are used to the idea of human rights. They were dedicated, you know, as I said, they are one of the most dedicated. And one man, Christophe Péchaud, became the head of the Human Rights Office in Phnom Penh, and he was a pebble in the shoe of Hun Sen until much later, because you know, Hun Sen tried to do everything but tried to kill him, but he didn't succeed. Now, talking about killing, actually, when Christophe Péchaud on one night discovered some secret prisons operated by Hun Sen people. And on that same night, our human rights officer, you know, he's from Spain, and he was with his two children coming to his house in Phnom Penh, and the car was stolen. But he was out of the car, and he was taken out his son, but his daughter left in the car, and they stole away his car. They ran away with his car, and the daughter was later shot here in the leg, talking about killing, and left on the street. Now, his wife was my secretary, so until 3 a.m. we were trying to find them, and some Vietnamese, some lady saw this bleeding woman, and she thought she was Vietnamese. So there was a lot of violence in those days. But the second one is very interesting. Information division, Tim Carney is an American, recruited Khmer-speaking experts, Jay Jordan, Penny Edwards, Steve Hedder, Judith Edgewood, who are now become the core of the Khmer experts until today. They are some of them are CKS, but they are all experts in Khmer. So they started their career during UNTAC. Now Steve Hedder speaks fluently Khmer, and Christophe Péchaud also. But they became our intelligence service. Well, Steve Heather would tell us at night, oh, this is what Khmer's radio says and so on. Immediate translation. They are the most efficient division, I must say, in UNTAC. No, the rest of us, we don't know the first thing. You know, I was the governor of Siem Reap. You know, I cannot even cover my own house. Rehabilitation suffered from opposition press, so rehabilitation was rather a failure because the donor countries don't want to go ahead. Secondly, the SNC, remember what I said, the SNC has to approve projects. A big World Bank project was nixed by the SNC, the Khmerus and SNC, because they don't want it to benefit the Hun Sen government. But finally, so we succeeded, UNTAC succeeded to have a new government which was legitimately elected. And that opened the floodgates of 3 Fs: foreign aid, foreign trade, and foreign investment. And they had 2 prime ministers at that time, Hun Sen and Ranare. This picture was taken when I was the UN ambassador, as Andrew said, presented my credential to the 2 prime ministers. Ranare, who is on the right, you know, he talked, you know, all the time. Hun Sen was prime minister number 2. He was sitting there listening, you know. But at the end, when I said one sentence, and so on, his voice is exactly like Sihanouk, you know, cackling. But his main mind is not like Sihanouk. He said, as I said, Sihanouk, he said, I wish that one was the one that is my son. So that's how the picture was, you know, when I was there. He slumped like that, but then he slumped no more, and at the end he kicked out Ranare. And now the one below, of course, is Hun Sen today. Just a quick one, I'm not so talking, but I'm an economist, so I want to tell you that economically, so what UNTAC did was, the elections did change. You know, UNTAC has a lot of failures, no demobilization, no control of Hun Sen and so on, but the elections opened the floodgates of aid. And as I said, economic growth has been spectacular. And the rate of the poor, well, you will get this lecture on economics, I think, back in the day after tomorrow or something. But I just want to mention here that actually UNTAC did, you know, because as you hear me, it's like I'm saying UNTAC is full of failures. But the elections is like, you know, like necessary act to bring back all the foreign aid. Because during that period from 1979 to 1992, Hun Sen and the Cambodians were denied foreign aid, you know, because they were not existing, you know. So our foreign aid was given to the border, but Hun Sen, the government in Phnom Penh, was only given aid by the Russians and the UN agencies. The only one who are allowed there was UNICEF and World Food Program. All the others UN were denied. So when the election was done, as I said, the floodgates were open, you know, and aid poured in like anything. So I must say that is still a success. But of course, when it comes, this is a course about China, of course, there's also a complete turnaround of China. You know China, well, of course, this is the core of your course, has a big supporter of Khmerus in the beginning. But today, China is the biggest aid giver, the biggest foreign investor, and the biggest number of tourists come from China. So today we have, I hope that Cambodia will not suffer from the new Cold War. And that's it, I think. Yes. Oh, yes, sure.
For the last slide, can you please go back?
Pardon?
For the previous slide.
Oh, yes, okay.
What happened in 2009? Where it had, I think there's 0.1%.
Aha! You live in the States? You know what happened in 2001?
Oh, okay.
The financial crisis. But it affected Cambodia less, now talking as an economist, you know, less than others because they don't have foreign debt. But of course, all their exports of textile and so on came to a stop, But they are less affected because there is no foreign debt, as I said. But it was affected because the biggest exports of Cambodia is textile, and agricultural products, rice, and three is tourism is like an export because you get foreign earnings. So the textile and agricultural product was affected by the world financial crisis or the Great Recession. So that's it.
How does Cambodia?
Pardon?
How does Cambodia exist without foreign debt?
You mean at that time? Yeah, okay. Maybe when I say not foreign debt, I was wrong, but what I said was they don't have this, MBS and mortgage-backed securities and so on that many countries. In other words, many countries suffered from the credit default swaps and so on, but it never reached Cambodia. Yeah, so there is foreign debt, but not that kind of debt that was generated by the financial, before, the credit default swap, the whole story. I have a beautiful slide here about the financial crisis, but that's not the topic of today.
Is that, can we open it up for questions now?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so before we do that, can we all please
I never had that many applause when I was in Cornell. And I have, the moral is you have to teach Cornelian outside Cornell. Yes.
I just want to check. In your book, you said that the SNC had 13 seats, but you only list 12 as belonging to the 4 different.
You mean
parties.
SNC?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay. There are 6 Hun Sen, 2 Food Impact, 2 Khmerus, and 2 KPNLF, and then there is this teacher no man, Sinan.
Okay.
Yeah. But that was, those are potential at that time, but they said it should be only 6, 12, but actually at the end they had 300. He said, I'm not fancy. But of course he's a very fellow. He helped Food Impact. Oh, Krishna. Yes, any other? Yes.
Why was the U.S. so adamant in protecting the Khmer after 1979, given that they sort of champion human rights or claims?
Very good question. That's actually basically they didn't like Vietnam because don't forget 75 Vietnam kicked out the Americans. So they decided, that. Why should they support Vietnam? And then, of course, officially they say nobody should invade another country. So Vietnam invaded Cambodia. So even if Cambodia consists of Hitler, we should never invade Cambodia. Very good question. But you see, of course, in the same year there was Uganda, was also sending troops, and also India invaded Bangladesh. Well, Pakistan, in order to create Bangladesh. But so the UN very often is, flexible. Sometimes they fight. So, but that's the question, So the US thinks that Vietnam should never invade Cambodia. But in my opinion, the basic question is they don't like the Vietnamese who just kicked them out. And then, of course, after in 79, this resolution was adopted that the Khmerus became the government of Cambodia, legitimate government in the UN, but of course everyone was embarrassed by that. So 2 years later, 82, they created these 2 others, Food Impact and KPNLF, I call them Contra groups. And so the Sihanouk, the Khmerus were clad in a fake leaf, we will call CGDK, and of course they continue to be So the three of them then occupied the seat at the UN, but it's still the Cameroons is there.
So the Cameroons, they've been left and Fontenberg.
Yes, they actually the two were created in in that area, and so they thought that it's not nice to have the Cameroons there, so let's treat them in nice clothes, called CGDK.
So they were aware of all the crimes that the Cameroons have committed in those lands.
Very good point, but that's a very good question again, because the reason why the Cameroons Tribunal, I understand you are going to see ECCC tomorrow, why is the Cameroons Tribunal delayed so long? Very good question. Because of course you cannot try somebody that you put on the pedestal as the government of Cambodia. Now the government of Hun Sen did have a trial of the Cameroons, and they condemned Ieng Sari to death and Pol Pot. Pol Pot Ieng Sari clique they call it. But it was a trial that nobody recognized because it was done in Phnom Penh. But that's why your Cameroons Tribunal is so postponed until today, which is ridiculous. They are all, ancient. You will see them tomorrow, if you get to see Hun Sin, what's his name? They are as old as Methuselah, because you cannot try someone that you put on the pedestal. He is a good guy. Yes.
Speaking along similar lines, I believe there's an emissary who's given a royal pardon by stand-up when he defected from Khmer Rouge, and so what do you think about him not being put on trial?
We're now being put on trial.
Yeah.
So do you think it's a good idea, or should what is your question? That I don't get my opinion.
Yeah, your opinion. There's a lot of debate about whether he should be put on trial because he's been granted a royal pardon. Does the tribunal have the right to rescind that?
Well, okay. I personally think it's a lot of waste of money. It costs a lot of money, this tribunal. The guard gets paid more than the prime minister or something, because UN salaries are there. I mentioned, UN salaries are fabulous. And also, as I said, all the two of them, I forgot even who is dead and who is not dead. I think Q Samhan is not yet dead.
And no chair.
No chair, yeah. Well, it's good for symbolic purposes that we put a closure. But I think because of this delay that we rightly pointed out, there has been processes of reconciliation within the Cambodia. During the PRK, when the Hun Sen government was isolated from the world, they have many reconciliation processes. They have Buddhist rights, and Buddhism doesn't have this trial actually, So they have people build pagodas in order to commemorate, and there was a trial at that time. So if you ask me, the young people today, they hardly remember, of course, because their parents have done reconciliation. There are many other ways to do reconciliation. And as I said, the Buddhist religion allows for various things, like you pray for the dead in the Buddhist religion. They don't emphasize in Buddhism. I'm not an expert, but who is guilty, should confess and so on. And of course, at one point there was a talk even about the Truth Commission, like they have in South Africa, but it was never came to fruition. So, in terms of the young people today, I don't know, 60% maybe was born after the Khmer. So they are getting on with their life. So in my opinion, it is a waste of money. But who am I? Yes.
I have a hypothetical question. Without the bamboo hole incident, how much less conflict do you think there would have been between Intac and the Khmer Rouge?
Very good question, yeah. Yes, the bamboo pole incident actually is symbolic, but So basically, according to the Paris Agreement, we should be allowed to go in all the 4 territories. Because, as I said, the Khmerus is a peaceful man. So and the Khmerus signed all that. But the biggest territory was in Thailand. So what happened in Thailand is, I was first sent with Sihanouk, to be his wine taster, and when I was not here, the rest of them came. But between Thailand and the Thai border, there was the Khmerus territory. And so we actually challenged them there, can we go through their territory? So without the bamboo pole accident, there could have been other accidents. Because actually you are going to unknown where. I have my own bamboo pole accident, meaning in my province, Siem Reap, in unknown bank, there was also Khmerus. So they would have found excuses. But this was symbolically the biggest excuse, because here are the 2 top leaders of Buntak, and they were, I saw that incident, because this Khmerus was not armed, you have to say, so they used their 2 big shots. What we were trying to do at that time was Akashi and Sanderson to go through the territory of Khmerus to meet the Dutch contingent who were waiting on the Thai side. The Dutch contingent is a battalion, was supposed to take care of the Khmerus area. Every area was controlled by the UN troops. In Siem Reap, my province, there's a Bangladeshi troops. And Khmerus area was supposed to be Dutch troops. But the Dutch troops were waiting in Thailand, and then the idea was for Akashi and Sanderson to go there. So the Khmerus actually made a statement there, Mr. Babu. We don't want you to go in my territory. And we had that incident, as I said, in unknown vectors. You're going to visit tomorrow? Or?
The day after the day after.
Oh, the day after, yes. So that's a good question. So that's why I said there's a total dome thing. I think they didn't want to cooperate at all, but that was a defining moment. So there were 2 schools of thoughts about whether the Khmerus should be were ready to cooperate or not. And one school of thought says that, oh yeah, they are torpedoes, as I said, they resent their past and so on. But the second school of thought is that they never actually wanted to cooperate. They signed the Paris Agreement just to get in there. Yes, yes.
You said that Sihanouk and the Khmerus had a love-hate relationship, and that could you just speak more about it? Was Sihanouk a pragmatist in that he just knew that
Sihanouk was a what?
Was he a pragmatist, or was he just power hungry? Or was he afraid for his life?
Very good question. And you major in politics?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The Sihanouk Khmerus relations, I think that book still has to be written, but the way I saw it is power hungry is the most important. So what happened is the Khmerus was a small movement of a communist. The Sihanouk actually gave them the name Khmerus. And Sihanouk is so-called in the middle, he is neutral, and the Khmerus were in the jungles, the Maquis. And then the Americans didn't like Sihanouk's neutrality. They said, you should be either with us or against us. I don't know what the formula is from Bush. So so they did 3 things. One is to bomb eastern Cambodia because they think the Vietnamese are all hiding there. And then 2 is invading even smaller Cambodia. But the third one is to depose Sihanouk with a right-wing general. Actually, they took that a little bit from my country, Indonesia. 5 years before that, we had the Sukarno, who was actually a neutralist like Sihanouk, and they were very close friends actually. the Sihanouk and Sukarno visited each other 6 times during their friendship, you know. And Sukarno always was, Sihanouk always was suspicious. Sukarno loves his wife or something. But anyway, in Indonesia, we have a right-wing general, Suharto is his name, you know. At that time, a nincompoop overthrew Sukarno, and Sukarno did nothing. And he killed 800,000 communists, and you know the rest. Suharto was dictator for 32 years. In Cambodia, Sihanouk was overthrown in a Jakarta type of model by General right-wing Lon Nol. But Sihanouk was out of the country, and he was furious. And what, you know, because what you asked is that Sihanouk, yeah, I will align with the devil to act against those people who dare to depose me, and that's what he did. He was in Beijing, he embraced the Khmerus and said, let's all fight against the American imperialists, blah, 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 yeah. Because they deposed me, you know, me. So he was embracing the Khmerus. And China, you know, actually, Pol Pot asked China's help for a long time. You know, and you have heard of the conference in Bandung, Asian African Conference. This was the Asian African Conference to declare neutrality in the Cold War. We Asians, we don't want to be with the Americans nor with the Russians. And at this conference, Zhou Enlai, the Prime Minister of China, actually took Sihanouk for lunch, you know, and said, I will guarantee your neutrality. So neutrality was accepted by China in the Bandung Conference in 1955, but not accepted by the